State of Affairs is pleased to welcome once again Angelo Valente, Executive Director Partnership for Drug-Free New Jersey, and Christopher Jakim is Assistant Special Agent in charge of Drug Enforcement Administration's New Jersey Division. Good to see you guys.
Listen, nice to see you.
Ange, we've done this before.
Yes.
We've talked before in forums, if you will, Chris, on the subject. Where are we right now with the opioid crisis in the state of New Jersey?
Well, I think we're making tremendous strides. I mean, we have been able to bring this epidemic to the public light. People are aware of it, and we've made some legislative strides that have also been really helpful.
The biggest?
I think the biggest was limiting the supply of medication to a 5-day maximum for a first prescription, and also the notification. The fact now that patients that are leaving doctors' offices are going to be aware of the addictive qualities of the drugs and also what alternatives might be available that are non-opioid.
Chris, we've been at this before. You see it from another perspective. How concerned, how aware do you think the public is at this point as to how serious this crisis truly is?
I think that awareness piece continues to grow, and we've been doing great efforts on trying to promote that and get the word out. From the medical community, doctors' awareness as far as their role in this epidemic, their prescribing habits, their ability to talk to their patients about the addictive nature of the opioids that they're prescribing. To Do No Harms, that we partnered up with the Partnership for Drug-Free New Jersey, has addressed over 3,200 doctors throughout the state of New Jersey. This is a symposium that we started back in October of 2013, and it's had great success to look at the outcome of what the doctors are saying after they've attended these symposiums.
You see big changes in doctors? We've had this discussion before, Angelo, and early on it was like, well, they're not as on board as we'd like them to be. 5 years later, after we start these forums, where are we?
I think we see a tremendous shift for a number of reasons. First of all, the CDC has provided guidelines, and these guidelines—
The Centers for Disease Control. Why are they relevant in this discussion?
Well, they're relevant because they have provided empirical evidence about what needs to be done in order to address the epidemic and reverse the epidemic. And what that evidence has shown is that some of the information that we've been providing, most of the information we've been providing, has been very accurate and consistent with what the CDC has now come up with as a way to address the problem. So I think a combination of seeing the federal government involved, certainly seeing the doctors engaged in attending these events, has been a tremendous help in addressing the epidemic.
We're doing this program at the end of the Christie administration, moving into the Murphy administration, if you will. Governor Christie, a leader in this effort, together with President Trump, they hold a Washington summit on this. So the president's saying that this is a national— I gotta get the language right. He said it was a crisis?
Public health epidemic.
Okay, what's the difference between a public health epidemic versus a crisis? Is there a difference?
I think that it was a step in the right direction, Steve. I think that no question about the fact that there needs to be funding that supports that.
Is there funding
crisis
from the federal government to do this, or as I heard that announcement, I didn't hear or see anything about money?
Well, I think the funding is going to come through the Congress and also through the president and his initiatives that he wants to create. So I think we're going to see that come down the pike.
Money for what?
Money for treatment, money for prevention, money for continuing providing long-term rehabilitation. So I think it's a combination of looking at all the different aspects of the disease and coming up with ways to be able to address it.
Governor Murphy will, in fact, be dealing with this. He is concerned, I'm sure, as a lot of other public officials are. What advice would you have for him?
I would say that he has to keep up this fight and champion this cause. He can't just turn his back on the opioid crisis itself. He has to lend extensive resources for treatment, for prevention, and be a champion for this cause and carry that torch forward.
But I want to be clear, there's being a champion in terms of your public rhetoric, and then there's money. You got to make this clear for folks, Angelo. Right. The public awareness effort, and we've been involved in the past in public awareness efforts, that's one thing. But the dollars, state dollars, federal dollars, it's critical.
There's no question about that, Steve. We need to have the resources necessary in order to address this epidemic. And the resources have to be available for all different levels. Certainly prevention is key, because if we don't stop this from starting, then I think we're going to see a continuation of the numbers, significant numbers.
Sorry for interrupting. I heard the president say, you know, and he told about his own experience. He said his brother had an alcohol problem, who he obviously was very close to. And he said, but, you know, for me, drugs are never my thing. Alcohol is never my thing. So the key is you just don't start. Respectfully, I thought I had heard that from Nancy Reagan, the former First Lady, when she said, just say no. Is that a strategy?
Well, I think it's part of an overall strategy. Certainly prevention is key, but certainly we need to be able to address those individuals that are already dependent or addicted on heroin, and we need to be able to get as much treatment options as possible. We need to be able to look at long-term recovery. We need to be able to support families that are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, because we know this is a disease that not only impacts the individual, but impacts everyone around them. So we need to be able to support those programs, and that will cost money. And I think we see now in New Jersey, there's been a commitment on the part of the governor and the legislature to be able to provide funds, and I think we're going to see it on the federal level.
Chris, real quick, the states are actually starting to, quote, sue certain pharmaceutical companies. Explain that.
They are. They are. So, I mean, an individual state, it's up to their discretion as far as the price that they've paid based on this epidemic, as far as the amount of deaths, lost wages, health care costs and expenses. So they're looking at this from an objective, you know, how can they recoup some of these costs?
Excuse me for interrupting. What message does it send? I guess it's Purdue Pharma, if I'm not mistaken.
It's one of
Purdue
the companies.
Pharma, there was a process where they started to sue, government started to sue Purdue Pharma. For what, by the way?
I think it's had to do with the fact that they had information about the addictive qualities of the drug.
Did they share?
They didn't share.
Okay.
And
So what message does it send? I don't know about that case. It plays out. I respect the judicial process.
Right.
What message do you think is it sending to the pharmaceutical community?
That governments are going to hold them accountable, right? I think when we look at this and how we got into this epidemic, it was a perfect storm as far as everything coming together. You know, we could go back and really trace this back to 1996 as far as, you know, pain management, you know, chronic pain as pain as a fifth vital sign, and how medical community is going to treat that. The role of the pharmaceutical companies and how they aggressively marketed these strong opioids and narcotics to not only the medical community but the public in general. And then the role of the trafficking organizations and how they stepped up, and the role particularly of the Mexican trafficking organizations and their transportation and distribution methods throughout the United States.
Final moments, how confident are you, Angelo, that we're going to continue to make progress here?
Oh, I think we're very much on the road of recovery. I think we're making progress. I think people are becoming more aware of this issue. I think we're also breaking down the stigma that many people face, many families face.
These aren't criminals. These are people who have a problem.
Absolutely. This is a disease like any other disease. And if your child comes home and had an issue with a potential...
2 seconds.
We need to be able to make sure that we tell everyone across the state and across the country that if they need help, get help, and more importantly, look at alternatives to opioids.
I promise we'll continue talking about this issue on State of Affairs. Thanks for joining us, folks. Thanks, guys.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey, TD Bank, Johnson & Johnson, Community Food Bank of New Jersey, New Jersey State Nurses Association and the Institute for Nursing, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by Rowan University,